Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I kind of just want to do a check-in and discuss how running's going, two of the books that I'm reading, and some ideas that I'm playing with in terms of essays I'm going to write in the future. Majority of this video is going to be about running. I just want to discuss and share with you all my current training regimen, some short-term and long-term goals I have with running, and also share how I'm feeling with training overall. So my current weekly training schedule is as follows. The goal is 60 miles a week. Monday and Thursday are tempo or threshold runs. Monday being a 3-mile warm-up, 6 miles at faster than marathon pace, which for me is about 620 to 625 minutes per mile, and then a 1-mile cool down. Thursday is a 2-mile warm-up and 8 by 1,000 meters done at around 6 minutes per mile, and then a 1-mile cool down. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday are easy runs, where Tuesday is 10 miles easy, Wednesday is 8 miles easy, Friday 5 or 6 miles easy, and then Saturday is a long run where I do 20 miles easy. Typically do this run on Saturdays with my friends Eric and Hernan, who have been featured in these past few YouTube videos and are the guys that you see in the video here. Like I said, the goal each week is to hit 60 miles for total volume, and I would say another goal is to make sure that I hit my times for that Monday and Thursday workout. And with this weekly program, I would consider this to be maintenance. My goal is just to be able to stay in shape. This was the same program that I used to run sub 3 hours last year, towards the end of last year. And so my thinking is that if I can just continue with this type of volume and speed work combination, then when it is time for me to ramp up for another marathon, which I'm aiming at towards the end of this year, it shouldn't be too hard compared to, if I were to stop running or if I were to only run 20, 25 miles a week. With that, I am enjoying training. I recently had a 5K race on a Saturday just to see how I was doing. It was a smaller race, very family oriented, so I'm also not the fastest runner, and so this was just something to do to remind myself what it's like to be in a race. For context, I won the 5K and my time was about 18:28, and second place was 18:32. And so again, small 5K, nothing to brag about, but it was fun to have some competition. The second place runner, I got to chop it up with him afterwards, and he actually has a 2:41 marathon time, and he got that 2:41 at Tokyo, I believe, a few months back. And so it was interesting to just notice the difference in the types of athleticism when it comes to quote unquote speed work, running a 5K and then maintaining a slightly slower pace for 26.2 miles. I think I did the paces, and we finished that 5K at about 550 minutes per mile, and I think to do a 240, that's like 605. And so granted, he maybe got a little bit out of shape since the marathon, but it's still crazy to think that it's crazy to think about the difference between speed and long distance endurance. And I can only imagine speed at the 1,000-meter type distance, or the 400-meter, or the mile. And so that 5K, while I wasn't happy with my time, it did give me some sort of confidence that maybe I'm okay speed-wise, and that when I do want to run my next marathon with the goal of running it around at below 250, that maybe I just need to up the volume and increase my endurance. But as far as my current times, my current speed, maybe I'm okay there. So that was fun to run that 5K. Again, really, I'm maintaining right now. I want to be able to hit these 60 miles every single week. Want to hit my times for my Monday and Thursday workouts. My next race is a 10K. It's the Peachtree Road Race here in Atlanta on July 4th. And so my goal there is to run it at around 36 minutes. Today just had my Monday workout. And like I said, it's a 3-mile warm up, 6 miles at marathon pace, and then 1 mile cool down. And so that's 6 miles, a little less than a 10K. I did that while maintaining a 6:21 or 6:22 minute per mile pace. And so happy with it. The Peachtree Road Race, this 10K is very hilly. It's a tough course, but it's super fun. I believe it's about 50,000, 60,000 people, so fairly large race. So I'm excited to knock that out in the beginning of July and really use that as a test to see how fast I can get. And ideally, the goal would be that, if I'm happy with my time there, that I'm doing something right, at least in terms of speed. After that, currently no races scheduled. So the main focus right now is this 10K. And then after that, we'll shift back into some sort of maintenance and really adjust my training from there if I feel like I need to ramp it up, or if I feel like I need to take a few more months to continue just base building, stacking the bricks, and then once I get a marathon on the calendar, actually set a 12 or 16 week program from there. After the Peachtree race, I'm going to be moving up to Queens, New York. So if anyone has any tips about running up there, please let me know. I would very much appreciate them. Or if anyone's up there and wants to link up and get some runs in, feel free to leave a comment down below. So I thought I might do a recap of this 20-miler that you guys are watching here. Very much enjoyed it. It was a little humid. I don't think I hydrated the best, nor do I think that I planned the best in terms of nutrition, meaning I didn't bring any on this run. Typically, I'm a big fan of Nick Bare's Goos, as well as, what are those others? Those other gels. I can't remember. But anyway, I do like to have, 2 or 3 gels, take one at every 5 or 6 miles, and that's definitely been helpful. And I can also tell a difference when I don't do that, but it was either a lack of planning or pride that pushed me to do this run without any sort of nutrition. Ended up stopping at one point at a gas station to down an entire Powerade. But overall, got the mileage in, made it through the hills of Atlanta, which I keep hearing the elevation in Atlanta is surprisingly difficult compared to, I suppose, other cities, other states with elevation. Anyway, lived in Atlanta my whole life, born and raised in Georgia, so my comparison is very low resolution. I can only take what other runners tell me, and they often say that if you train in Atlanta, specifically doing the Peachtree Road Race, or if you do the Publix Marathon here, if you can train here, when you go to other places to run, it'll be a lot easier, especially in combination with the heat and humidity that can make it difficult in Atlanta. So very blessed to be here. Sad that I'm moving, but it's part of life, and at the same time, I am excited for that transition, and so it'll all work out. All right, so that was running. Reading. 2 books that I'm reading right now. One of them is called A Conflict of Visions by Thomas Sowell, and the other is An Anthropologist on Mars by Oliver Sacks. The book by Oliver Sacks is the 3rd one that I've read by him, and I thoroughly enjoy his writing style, his attention to detail. For those who don't know, he was a neurologist. He's passed away, but he was a neurologist, and many of his books, at least the other books that I've read, are compilations of stories of patients that he's had. So it's not obvious which ones are real and which ones are fictitious. What's a better way to say that? He definitely, and he explicitly states this, that he changes some of the details to hide the identities of some of his patients, and others, his patients have given him permission to use whatever information he wants. And so that's just something that I keep in mind as I'm reading through. But either way, the stories are powerful in themselves, and I trust that he was a great clinician and he paid great attention to detail to his patients. And one of the themes that he talks about throughout all of his books is the importance of establishing a collaborative, empathic relationship with his patients. He notes that some physicians or clinicians tend to reduce their patients, or they are condescending towards them. They believe that they, as the physician, as the professional, have all the answers, and that the patient just needs to sit there and do what they say. But Sachs makes it a point to highlight that everyone is ignorant, whether you're a professional or a layperson, and the perhaps the best way, or at least the best attitude and posture to have when trying to solve these problems, is one of collaboration and understanding and listening and keen observation. And so while his books aren't super technical, and if they were more technical, I don't think I'd be able to understand them, the storytelling and the characterization that he offers when detailing the scenes and situations and circumstances of his patients convey a deep meaning and a deep sense of understanding when it comes to like what it means to be a human. Again, he's a neurologist, and so a lot of his patients had some sort of neurological or psychological problem, but he's careful, at least with my limited reading of him. I believe he has like 8 or 9 or 10 books, and so I haven't read all of his work. Just from the few books that I have read, he's careful not to reduce his patients down to clumps of matter in the brain, or to atoms, or to neurons or electrical firings. He makes it a point to highlight the real human aspect of what his patients are going through. And so, for one example, one chapter that I'm reading right now in An Anthropologist on Mars had to deal with this patient who had autism. And on top of being autistic, he was also a savant. And so from the age of 4 or 5 through his adolescence, he had this sort of memory where he could take a glance at a landscape or a scene and immediately recreate it in drawing. And then he also had this musical ability where he could imitate some celebrities. He could imitate Tom Jones, and he could recreate masterpieces of different classical works of music. And so, by all tests, perhaps tests on intelligence or other cognitive tests, he was mentally defective or deficient, and this patient didn't have a lot of good social skills, and his rate of development and learning was definitely abnormal. At the same time, there was beauty in how he saw the world, and when his situation involved a combination of familial support and care and compassion, along with beauty and art and music, there were times where he didn't even seem autistic or abnormal, because he was able to be in this flow, in this natural harmony, or this natural, that's good enough, this natural harmony. And so that's my attempt to poorly capture an example of a chapter from the book. But all of his books are, or again, at least the ones I've read, are filled with these experiences that he's had, where he's done his best to adopt the mindset or the perspective of his patients to get a better understanding, not just of who they are, but who he is. And then he's able to package this with his depth and breadth of knowledge of neurology, but also of philosophy and what it means to exist. And he can put all this together in his writings and share the lessons and principles that he's learned with us. And so, on many levels, I'm thoroughly enjoying reading books by Dr. Sachs. I want to be a psychologist myself, and so the subject matter is of interest to me greatly, but also I'm getting to admire him indirectly as a clinician, and I'm hoping to have that same level of expertise and attention to detail and faculty for empathy that he is demonstrating, or he has demonstrated. And also, I am enjoying his writing style. And so, one of the things that I'm trying to do as I'm reading and learning is finding people that I could imitate. Given that, I find myself developing some sort of admiration for them, and I also try to reflect and see, like, why do I admire them? What are some of the things? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What is it? What is it about how they're communicating that is gripping me? And I even then try to share those ideas with other people, and if it grips them too, then that's just more of an indicator that these great authors, these great clinicians, these people that I'm reading, they were doing something right, to some degree at least. And so that's definitely been that's part of the attitude that I'm trying to bring to these texts when I'm reading them. Now, the other book that I'm reading, I'm about a quarter of the way through it. It's called A Conflict of Visions by Thomas Sowell. And what is a book? I just finished another book by him. What is it called? Not Vision of the Anointed. The Quest for Cosmic Justice. That was an amazing book. So interestingly enough, over the past few weeks, I've had these two streams of books that I'm reading. One is more psychology focused, and then the other is more, I don't want to say sociological in nature, but maybe perhaps political or even economic and sociological in those terms. And so, read some books by Martin Luther King, and then A Quest for Cosmic Justice, and now I'm on A Conflict of Visions. And one of the why it's been interesting to read those books in that combination, maybe not that specific order, but just those books recently, is that it's helping me understand some of the differences between liberals and Republicans. And that's not even the best way to say it. Maybe I can just lay out A Conflict of Visions, at least where I'm at there. This book is Thomas Sowell's attempt to elucidate the primary assumptions that undergird, I would say, contemporary politics in the West. Even though this book was, I believe it was written in the late 80s, and then there's the edition I'm reading right now is a republishing in 2007, so I think maybe there's some updates there, but still, I'm finding it to be quite accurate. And Sowell is talking about these two visions that really are, it's really a spectrum, but he's using it as he's instilling a dichotomy just for shorthand and for utility of understanding the concepts that he's conveying. And so you have one vision that's the constrained, and the other vision is the unconstrained. The constrained vision, I believe one archetypal figure would be Adam Smith, for the constrained vision. And my understanding so far is that those with the constrained vision believe human nature, or humans and man, to be inherently limited. They fall in line with and this is something that Sowell talks about in the book, is it Thomas Hobbes. They fall in line with Thomas Hobbes' vision of man. And then you have the unconstrained vision, and in the unconstrained, this is more the Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the Rousseauian vision of human nature and man. And so when it comes to the overarching theme, let me back up. Sowell is trying to answer the question, or he's trying to talk about, I'm sure people notice this today when it comes to political conversations. Like, it seems that people can be predictable in nature, where if you ask them, well, where do they sit on abortion? If they're pro-life, well, then maybe you could also then predict how they're going to be when it comes to guns. You can predict what their belief is going to be on immigration and on education and distribution of wealth and all of those different seemingly disparate topics. And so Soul talks about essentially, well, why is it that there's this pattern or order that seems to manifest when you ask someone about one event or policy that you can then predict what their other, thoughts are going to be on unrelated or seemingly dissociated events. And he says it's because people seem to make these similar decisions on basic assumptions of human nature. And so, are people inherently good or inherently bad? Is knowledge something that's in tradition and in the evolution of the planet, or is knowledge something that is only held in the individuals who are alive and their faculty of reasoning, and therefore tradition needs to be subjected to all types of rigorous tests and questions? Do you believe that reason is something that could be articulated fully and made explicit, or do you believe that reason can be unconscious and implicit? And so there are these fundamental questions about how the world works that create essentially two different visions, which again are on a spectrum, but so instantiates a binary for shorthand. And to me, those ideas are very deep, and the fact that he's able to make these explicit and he's drawing from hundreds of years of history and displaying different examples to indicate how we all have a vision, because we can't. This is the last thing I'll say about it. This is one thing that I appreciated from the book that I feel like I knew, but I couldn't put it into words as well as Soul has done it. I'm probably going to butcher it here again, but here I go. Reality is infinite and ineffable. Okay. Given that reality is infinite, we need some sort of interpretive structure to contend with reality. So reality is a territory, but we need a map because we can't contend with or even comprehend the entirety of the territory. And so our map is a vision. It's a belief system. It's an ideology. It's a set of assumptions that we use to control the chaos and the multitude of facts around us, so that way we can make a decision. Okay, given that we have a vision, from that vision, which again is a set of foundational assumptions, we then proliferate theories about how the world works. And these theories are sets of cause and effect relationships. And then, finally, we could think of science or rationality as the attempt to validate and confirm or deny those cause and effect relationships through empirical evidence. The point there is that if you have different assumptions from someone else, then not only are your theories about how things work going to be completely different, but how you see the world is going to be completely different. And so, to me, that was I'm excited to finish the rest of that book and also continue to read more of Soul's work. Running out of time here. I don't think I'm going to talk about writing. Actually, I will. Just quickly, some ideas that I'm thinking about over the next few weeks. I have a question of what does it mean to be a good person? Another question is, why should you enjoy suffering? And I think that's all that's on the horizon right now. And so perhaps one of those will become the topic of perhaps one of those will be the topic of a YouTube video in the near future. But I'm going to keep noodling on those. If you want to follow the essays that I'm putting out, please consider subscribing to my Substack, and the link is in the description below. Also consider subscribing to the channel if this is something that you're interested in, and I'm also open to any and all feedback. Thank you all for the time and attention, and I'll see you in the next video.